All right, there we go. Let's get our Facebook friends in here and let's start the show. All right, spinning wheel 1 and 2. All right, welcome in. It is Wednesday morning, the 5th of June, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by Scott Kennedy. Scott, happy Wednesday to you. How you doing? Ready for hour number 2 of Talking Sports Ball?
Yeah, I kind of like these Mondays and Wednesdays. Let's talk sports for 2 hours. As Rocky says, remember when punctuality was a thing? We were on time. We were just in a different location. So good to see. If you ever want to join us earlier, go to youtube.com/Scott Kennedy because we're talking Falcons and other stuff, other football. We're football guys at 8:30 Eastern time. And then we hop over here when we're finished catching up on some stuff. So yeah, we try and be on this one by 9:35 Eastern time. So we're right there.
I mean, punctuality is, I do like being punctual, but I'll say once having a kid and my partner who is not always, she's a time optimist, right? So when we leave, it's, doesn't give herself error bar.
Battles.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and you don't want to do that thing where you are giving them a false time to build it in too much because they start to figure that out, but that's okay. We're here and, heck, up at 4:30 to make sure that we can bring you guys the shows at this time. 4:30 a.m. out here in the Pacific on Mondays and Wednesdays for you guys. So I don't know. Well, we're here on time for sure. We get David Youngkin in the house saying just stop by and to say have a great show. Good to see you, David. Kevin Gray in the house. Morning, Nick and Scott. Big Mile High salute to you. Denver Luke's in the house. Great to see you. Dave Glassman, we always appreciate you. He says, let's go Broncos. Talking about one stream to the other, we got Robot of Doom coming in, sticking over on YouTube today, saying, boom, I was in one stream, now I'm on another. Must be a wizard, Harry. I just, that flu powder, whatever it was, they're going chimney to chimney, or the port key. It's been a bit
while.
Yeah, it has.
You could talk Harry Potter now and really date yourself. It's like, when you hit like your 30s, anything after 30 feels new to you. Okay. Mm-hmm. So like what you're watching right now when you're 50, you'll still think that's the new stuff. Harry Potter to me is like still new. I'm like, oh yeah, that was the new thing. Cause like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and the Temple of, the Indiana Jones, that's my stuff. Harry Potter's the last Harry Potter movie was probably 15 years ago.
If not more. I mean, it's been a bit for sure, but, glad to have you here, Robot of Doom. We appreciate you. Zach Powers in the house, too. Morning with the coffee. Always great to see you. Monica comes in and says, morning, gang. I feel like we can't judge Zack Wilson just yet. It's OTAs. Mandatory minicamp to me is still early as well to judge. Preseason, we'll know who quarterback 1, quarterback 2 will be. We are rebuilding. And yeah, Monica, if you followed the show at all, I've always said it's kind of a ramping up in predictability and importance as we get closer and closer. You have your OTA, rookie minicamp down here, OTAs here, mandatory minicamp, training camp, preseason games, regular season. Every single thing starts to add more and more of the predictive power and the importance. So Zack Wilson, it was open to media yesterday. All reports are his run with quarterback with the first team. He really struggled out there. Not a good time for Zack Wilson. It doesn't matter a lot. No, but he's in a battle fighting for a roster spot on this team. So every single bit of information we have, it is June. We're going to overreact to some extent because it's what we have to go off of right now. It's kind of like let's say you're in school, Scott, and you have one quiz so far and it's only worth, 3% of your grade, but you fail it. Well, guess what? Your grade right now is an F, but is it going to matter later on? We'll see. But he struggled yesterday and that's noteworthy right now.
I think this matters. I think it absolutely matters because I think there's a battle for the number 2 spot. I don't know that they would keep 3. I think there will be 3, but I don't know if they keep those 3.
Yeah.
If Zack Wilson wins the number 2 spot, I think Stidham's gone.
Yeah.
I think Stidham could be gone. If Stidham wins the number 2 spot, you can probably keep Zack Wilson because he's so cheap. Why not? Now, when I see stuff like we're just trying to rehab Zack Wilson and then we'll trade him next year. He's got 1 year left on his contract, y'all. That's not feasible. The only way you rehab Zack Wilson and trade him is if you start him. It's like, okay, well, we're going to trade him and we're going to start him. Then we're going to trade him at week 9 after he's played great. Well, if he's playing great, you're not going to trade him. So I have a really hard time finding a path to trading Zack Wilson. So it's either he's going to make the team or he's going to get cut. Those are the two options right now. Can you bring him back as a practice squad guy? If he wants to stay, he'll have other options if he gets waived. But trying to trade him right now that's not an option for me.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I think that doesn't matter to a certain extent, but we're going to get a lot more data points here. And he struggled in a very small aspect of the overall puzzle piece as we build towards the regular season. But he's definitely fighting for a roster spot. Denver did not give up very much to take that lottery ticket to bring him in. They end up getting the young quarterback they want in the draft. So Wilson, to me, is very much battling for a roster spot, not just quarterback too, but he could be completely off the roster as well when it comes down to the math of it. So we will see what happens. Lawrence comes in and says, "What's up with Zack Wilson, guys?" It's a Zach Wilson there, getting the H on there. I never know what the spelling will be. But he struggled yesterday in OTAs, open to the media, when he was able to run with the first team. We'll see what it looks like in mandatory mini camp as well. But it is a small puzzle piece, but does matter because, again, like we said, he is battling for his Broncos roster spot life right now because the investment was so small. If you traded him and he doesn't end up hitting the roster, honestly, oh well. Like it's one of those. It's like, okay, oh well.
Yeah, it's worth the flyer. Scott, we've done this before. We played this game before, Nick. Scott, would you do this? Yeah, I'd take a look. What would I pay for him? What would I invest? Those are different questions. I'd take a look. Would you consider Mac Jones? Yes, I just considered him. No, I don't want him. Okay, yes, but I consider everything. That's your job as a general manager. But Zack Wilson, the biggest problem I had with Zack Wilson watching him with the Jets is he does not see the game. Is just his ability to read a game and make good decisions. Well, that's arguably the single most important part of being a quarterback in the NFL. Now, you just kind of assume that by the time they've gotten to this level that they can do that. So it's an assumption. You don't think, well, what's the number one trait of a quarterback? Well, decision making. Okay, well, they've all got that. So let's move on. What's next? Well, he breaks his refrigerator's unplugged. What are you looking for in a refrigerator? Well, I want this size. I've got one that makes ice balls. It's kind of cool. And we have fun saying ice balls. I want crushed ice, not this. Well, it's not plugged in. Okay. It's never going to work. So my biggest problem with Zack Wilson is he just does not see the game. And you can get away with raw talent on the college level. Jamarcus Russell is the prettiest thrower of a football I've probably ever seen. Ended up being a number 1 draft pick. The work ethic was not there. And he never learned to read the game and didn't make those decisions. You can get away with that up until this point. But that's what he's missing for me, Lawrence, is his ability to see and read a game and make good decisions. And that is a break point. Can you get better at that? Yeah.
In theory.
Can you get good enough to become an NFL quarterback? I don't know.
Yeah, game just seems he's frantic and frenetic, and it's an issue. He kind of feels issues when it goes beyond, like you mentioned, he's one of the few quarterbacks who got worse the more time he had, but he was pretty bad under pressure as well, dealing with the pocket and the pass rush. He had his big season at BYU in the COVID year, and because BYU was not in a conference at that point, they didn't really play anybody of note. They had to scramble to kind of get a schedule together. Now they're in the Big 12, so we'll see how. Are they in the Pac? No, yeah, Pac-12 fell apart. They're in the Big 12 now, but it was a weird season, and people were hoping on the arm talent. There was just a lot of questions with him, so he struggled yesterday, like we said. We'll see what happens. He's still got the arm talent. Sean Payton spoke decently about trying to bring him. They worked like a month and a half to try to work on the compensation to get him in here. They talked about the work ethic of the quarterback room and the inquisitive nature of all the guys they brought in as well, working with Webb, and just kind of that, seek it out intelligence or knowledge-based kind of guys in here. Zack Wilson also maybe has a little bit of a leg up because of some of the terminology that he had with the Jets translates over a little bit better than what you had Jarrett Stidham coming from the Patriots in that Earhart-Perkins system. But again, small sample size. Wilson struggled. He's very much battling for his roster spot life. And now that Denver has two quarterbacks, Stidham and Bo Nix, seemingly pulling away a little bit too, not just based on the day yesterday. We'll see what happens with Wilson, but with each passing day, it seems more likely that he will not be here.
No pun
Long way to
intended.
go yet.
No pun intended on the passing day.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Michael Ronquillo coming in with the support. Stars says, "Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Go, Michael. We always appreciate you coming in and saying hello. God bless you. Hope everything's going well out there in Tucson." We got Miguel Santasteven out there in New Mexico saying, "Do you guys think coaching in New York ruined Zack Wilson and made him worse?" I mean, he had LaFleur out there for a little bit, right? He had, obviously, Hackett, which is not great, but coaching can ruin quarterbacks to an extent, but also the offensive line there has been pretty terrible. The weapons outside of Wilson have struggled. You had Breece Hall with the injury. It's not a very good offensive infrastructure in general out there, but we will see
The
what happens
environment
with
in New
that.
York.
What was that?
The environment in New York.
Yeah.
You know, we just got done talking on a previous podcast about an easy press room. That's not the same thing in a crucible that is the New York media. They actually get off on trying to embarrass you. They think, you know, it's like a game to them. Points. Chuck one up for Michael. He embarrassed the quarterback today. Got a rise out of him.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Zach always came off a little bit sheepish, I guess. I mean, I'll never forget him like standing in before the draft along all the other players and just kind of looking doe-eyed and like, oh man, what the hell? Did not seem in place there, but we'll see what happens. Richard coming in here saying, been a while. Is it September yet? No, Richard, we need to enjoy ourselves this summer yet. Pacific Northwest summer is elite, and I want to make sure I get out there before September. So got things want to accomplish before we get to football season. Want to enjoy ourselves a little bit. My Cardinals are struggling now. They started to show a little bit of life, and now they've lost, 4 of their last 5. But September will come. It always does. And let's enjoy the lead up to it as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to enjoy the summer. Again, Richard, I told Nick, said this earlier, you know, when you get a young one and he's got a 5-month-old now, the first time you catch yourself saying, I can't wait until he's able to. Yes, you can. You will wait. You will enjoy every single moment. So yes, I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy. And there's lots to go on between now and then. You know, the camp battles we said, which I think, you know, what was it? Keith that came in. Keith thought there were 2 questions here. It was Rocky. Rocky, I want to get to you on this one too, because I like the question. And Keith asked, you know, does Justin Jefferson's market-defining contract, which was $35 million per year, guaranteed for 3 seasons, does it set back the Sutton contract negotiations? No, I don't think it really has anything to do with it. I mean, I think it helps affirm your belief of, you know, hey, I'd like a tip here. You know, he's not looking for a huge and exponential increase. He's looking for some Cortland Sutton. He's looking for guaranteed money because he doesn't have any right now, relatively speaking. He's got like $2 million guaranteed. If he goes out and blows an Achilles, the Broncos cut him. They owe him $2 million. That's it. When you're seeing your peers get $100 million guaranteed and you're on 2, makes you a little nervous. Makes you a little nervous out there. And I think with you know, a sweetener, you get an extension. It goes up about $750,000 on the cap, and he gets guaranteed money, and he's in camp. I think it gets done eventually, Nick. I really do.
He has 2 years left on his contract. He can sit out and lose money if he wants, but he gets older and older, and there's more chance of injury or just, you know, fading away. We talked about it. I mean,
the Broncos have 2 option years left on his contract. Cortland Sutton basically, again, relatively speaking, to every other sport, doesn't have anything.
Yeah,
he's got no guarantees right now that if he goes out, he's the equivalent of an undrafted free agent to a certain extent, a well-paid undrafted free agent with no guarantees. And if he goes out and blows out a knee, he's done.
Yeah,
and you've earned the right as a player to have a little leverage right now. I've made $40 million. I can sit out if I have to.
Yeah. And it's not just the Justin Jefferson contract. It's Jalen Waddle as well, right? He got a massive contract, and we're going to see CeeDee Lamb, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase here pretty soon as well. That's going to change things. honestly, shout out to the Eagles. What they paid Smith is under market value compared to what we're seeing everything else go on here. But yeah, I think that Sutton can hold out if he wants. Denver still holds leverage. You got 2 years of control left.
Mhm.
And if Denver offers him something that fair and he says no, okay, well, then we'll fine you if you're not here. And if not, I mean, I'm sorry, but you signed the contract. That's the deal. I don't fault either side for
Mhm.
playing it out the way it is. It's you signed the contract. Sutton wants more. There's no guarantees. This is just the song and dance we're used to in this
Yeah,
CBA
and
11.
it's also the reason why. Well, he signed the contract; he should be there. Guys get waived at the back end of their contracts all the time because they're not owed any more money. So
Mhm.
you have to look at it both ways. And when they sign, it's kind of understood that okay, these 2 years with no guaranteed money, we're going to do something different. Whether it's restructure or cut you, one of the two. We're gonna. That's it's almost an understood at this point that happens,
And
and it's like we asked Mike McGlinchey to restructure. So, okay, can you take a little more money? We'll give you a little bit more money. We're going to extend, but we want to save some money now. Yeah, I can do that. Michael says, do you know Brandon Perna from, was it, I thought it was like, That's Good Sports or something. Brandon I think he was a co-founder of Mile High Huddle with Chad back in the day. I helped sign and worked with Chad when I was general manager of scout.com and he was on our network. So I got to work with Brandon, but I never got to meet him. All of my interactions were with Chad. So Chad and I go back to, I don't know, 2014 together, 2015 together when he was at Scout, and we've been together one way or another ever since. But I've never met Brandon, but I got to know Chad because of the work that Brandon was doing, and I loved it. I'm like, dude, we need more of this guy. We need more
yeah,
video. We need, this is 10 years ago. There is not video everywhere. We need more video like this. This is fun. This is engaging. So I was a big fan of Brandon's early work, and I haven't really followed him. I'm happy for his success.
I'm bummed for him that the Broncos have been as terrible as they have because I think given how fun he is when the team is good, his vibes and just good times roll a little bit better. It's kind of hard to feel good about where this team has been the last decade. So hopefully for him and everybody, not that he's not still doing great work. I've never met Brandon, but I really do like what he does and
He's
the way
fun.
he creates content.
He's
Yeah, it's
fun.
fun.
He's funny.
He's
I'm really happy for his success. He's one of the he was we were on the same network together when I was in charge of that area at Scout.
Yeah, and I don't think you can be that funny unless you're smart as well. So he's got a very good creative mind. Does great work again. But I've only talked to him like on Twitter and stuff and like replies and whatever, but really do respect what he does. I know I couldn't do what he does. I'm not wired that way. I like to have fun, but not the same level of the fun content production that he does. So
Yeah, because when you have that level of fun, it comes with a big level of haters too.
mm,
You polarize people a lot more. I'm too sensitive. I'm too sensitive for that. I don't want all those haters.
yeah.
Lauren says when we were talking about growing up and being older. I tried asking the young coworker the other day if he knew The Land Before Time, and he said no. I feel old. I actually never saw it. In Land Before Time really old? Wasn't that an like old book?
That's a dinosaur TV cartoon that was popular in the 90s. I
Okay,
definitely
yeah.
woke up.
I remember Land of the Lost and the She Stacks. I remember that coming on one time, and I was afraid to get off the couch when I was like 6 years old to change the channel. It was like the floor was lava, and I was just terrified sitting there. And it was just fun saying She Stacks.
Yeah, I remember that one. Terrorized my mom. Not to date you, Scott, but no, Land Before Time was kids cartoon with dinosaurs
I'm
and
sure
stuff.
I'm your parents' age within 5 years. I'm closer to them than I am you. I promise you that.
But we got Rob coming in and says, "Good morning, gents. The best MHH team. Glad to have you back. Always better morning with Nick and Scott. Does P Ryan make the final roster? I think right now, just based on the numbers, I think it's going to come down to Estime's knee. Honestly, if Estime, for some reason, the scope and everything that happened there, if they can kind of cheat the system and get him on the early season, reactivate later on, you're on the God, what is it even called? The injured reserve list set to be active later. Then maybe you can keep P Ryan for a bit and save some money. I'm not sure how his
The
contract
pup,
exactly works, but
the pup is a short-term thing now. It's not
yeah,
a
the pup.
it's not a long-term, and the injured reserve is like 6 weeks now.
The thing about there's some like stuff you have to do with keeping him on the 53 and then translating
Right.
him to the pup afterwards. Otherwise, you can't be active if he's done activities so far.
I
So
hate the bookkeeping of this stuff. It's
it's
just
complicated.
I know they have to put it in there because people have exploiting loopholes, but it's still annoying.
It's
Does
hard for us to
Pirine make
follow.
the final roster? I think Pirine is your most known commodity right now in the in
Mhm.
the in the in the Denver Broncos running back room. You know what you're gonna get. I think there's bigger variation with every player. Rookies, there's all kinds of variance there. You're never sure. And then with Javonte, can he be the Javonte that was drafted, or is he going to be the Javonte that struggled with coming off of knee injury? Is he ever going to be back to where he was? Preseason could be very good for that. If he's not playing at all in the preseason, Javonte isn't. I can't believe he played in the preseason last year.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's
If
crazy.
if he's not playing at all, then he's made the team. You know, they're basically saving him. So that will be a tell for me. But as far as floor to ceiling guys, there might be the smallest window between the floor and the ceiling on Pirine. You know what you're getting there.
Mhm.
Does he make it? I don't know. Rob,
It's
I
going to come
don't
down to.
know.
I think it's more so not what P Ryan does, but what do McLaughlin and Watson show? If you can go younger and cheaper and more years of control with your McLaughlin, Watson, Estime guys there, then maybe you do move on from P Ryan, save that what 2 million or something. But I think it's more so can these young guys step up and outshine P Ryan, or even tie him to the point where we're going to go with a younger, cheaper, cost controlled guy instead of P Ryan. Right now, I think I'm going to go with right now I'm going to go with no, but I need to see what training camp and preseason and everything looks like too before really we're judging that just based on vibes and nothing else. So we'll see what it looks like once we have actual tape to analyze.
Boogmeister, he says coffee and Broncos for breakfast while driving to work. Can ask for a better way to start the day. Good morning, big dogs. Have a great day to you as well. And when we started this, we are now in our 4th year together, Nick.
God.
Speaking of times flying, when we started this, the idea was that maybe we can capture some of y'all's drive time, going to work. And it's been rousing success because of people like y'all. So certainly appreciate it. And people like Troy coming in as well. He says, hey guys, what makes a difference between quarterbacks with tools who bust, are average, or elite? What do each do to defenses that is different?
Man, quarterbacks who have tools who bust, I think a lot of it comes down to accuracy, processing, and work ethic. Those are the big things. It's always going to be a little bit different. The environment that they're in as well is going to make a big difference as well. Do they have the infrastructure in place and the coaching staff who can understand what makes the quarterback tick, not only to maximize their play on the field, but motivate them as well. But guys who bust, who have tools, typically I would say it comes down to the processing side of things. What do they look like when bullets are flying and they actually have to deal with a small pocket? Uh, are they accurate enough? You can have tools and not be accurate, and you're not going to do very much in the league. And then finally, the work ethic stuff there. Those are the big three that come to mind. But just like every single player, it's always a different environment, different situation. These guys are individuals. I don't think there's one overarching thing besides those three main categories.
Yeah, the environment is a big one. I wanted to make sure we hit on that one. What's the situation they were put in? Because you can get like a running back. By the time your team is better, the tread could be off the tire. You could be beat up and shell shocked. But again, as Nick hit on it, it's the decision making. It's the hardest position to scout because it's the one that requires the least amount of the stuff that you can measure. Yes, I can put a radar gun on the guy and get his fastball, but I don't know his mental makeup, his leadership skills. Y'all have heard me mention this before. When we were scouting Chad Kelly at Scout coming out of high school, as a group, we kind of gave like fun. We never went public with these because, again, we didn't need the hate. But as a group, we would come up with like little fun awards for every year. And we voted Chad Kelly the most likely to get his ass kicked by his teammates when he got to Clemson. That's bust potential. He's, if you can't lead the guys, you can't play quarterback. Now he's had all the arm talent in the world, great thrower of the ball, and you're going to take a chance on a guy like that. But you felt like going in, I don't know that this guy's going to make it because his teammates are going to hate him. We talked about Jamarcus Russell earlier, the ability to take the next step and to put in the work, to read, to learn, the anticipation, the water in my lap that I just dumped over. At least it's not coffee, but that's really uncomfortable. Talk with my hands with a big full cup of water next to me. All of those things, there are tools, but when you go to the combine, the position I care the least about is quarterback. That's the one that requires the most on film and the least on measurables.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk out both sides of my mouth here, Scott. I agree with you, but at the same time, I do think that there is a point where you have to have enough in these areas, and
that's true for every position. So
that is
when
true
I
for every
say
position.
when I'm talking about what I care the least about, I have to have that at every position. So that scratch when I'm coming up, okay, what am I looking for here and here? That just scratched itself off against every other position, so that doesn't count anymore.
Yeah. The other aspect is if you have enough tools and areas you can compensate and kind of, learn as you go. I mean, I remember the rookie season of Josh Allen where it's exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
Chicken with your
Josh
head cut
Allen
off.
is so physically gifted that we're willing to, if he shows enough of those things, we're willing to let him continue.
But
Drew
they
Lock,
also,
maybe not.
yeah. And with Josh Allen, they absolutely loved the mental makeup. His teammates adored him, the work ethic. I mean, he's a maniacal worker as well. So you need to have, if you're spending a premium investment on a quarterback, you need to have everything. The reason why I am so tools oriented with the quarterback, Scott, is because it's actually quantifiable, right? That's the big one for me. Where the other stuff, it's hard to say. You can go off the tape and you judge accuracy, but the college game is totally different, conference to conference, let alone college to the NFL, and just the level of competition. It's tough. But Kathy, come in. Hi, Nick and Scott. I'm late, but I was able to make it live. Well, that's okay, Kathy. Great to see you. Wanted to say hello to FC Donley as well in the house. Dom's in the house. Great to see you, Scott.
Nick,
you got
real
something?
quick, and let's put a bow on this. Just when I'm doing my scouting of the quarterbacks, it's the one I want to be around the most. I want to see how his teammates interact with him. I want background checks, and not like criminal background checks. I want to talk to his math teacher. I want to talk with his middle school coach. I want to know all these things, and you can get an idea of the mental makeup and the personality and the characteristics you can't measure. Does he have all these things? And you can have all of that, and they can still bust because they're human beings. So there is no 100% way to get it right. But these are the kind of tools I want to watch him when he doesn't know I'm there. I've scouted kids on an airplane because we're going to an all-star game together. I want to see how you react to other people around you. Are you are you a good person? Are you confident? Those type of things. And that to me is the most important with the quarterback.
I mean, Scott, to your point, even more so, you have these teams flying scouts, head of player, college personnel to all these schools to see these guys, and they're not there for the game. They're there for the lead up to the game. They want to see what these guys look like on the field, interacting with their coaches, trainers, teammates, how they communicate, what their stature and what the arm looks like live. At these all-star events or at a lot of games, these guys are out of there by halftime.
How do you fail? How do you handle failure?
Yeah.
That was a big knock on Caleb Williams last year. People on him. Now, I don't mind that he was passionate about losing, but you say all the time when you're watching these kids play, it's because you teach them early. Body language. There's kids I've watched my son play baseball with. I'm like, these guys don't want to be out here. I don't want him to play with guys that don't want to be here anymore. What's your body language like? There's a great reel that goes around on Instagram, and it's a couple of UCLA basketball players you may have seen. Guys walking down, with his head down. And I don't know the context, but obviously it was something that just didn't go wrong. Guy about half his size, probably a guard, comes up, puts an arm around him, puts his hand under his chin and lifts his head. And, the comments always like, surround yourself with people like this. That's my quarterback. That guard, point guard, very similar to quarterback. We hear that comparison all the time. That's my quarterback. That's the guy I want to be around.
Yeah. again, it's crazy. When I first heard this, back in freshman year, sophomore year of college, scouting quarterbacks, uh, these executives, they'll go down there, they'll go on the field, they'll see how they interact, and they're gone at halftime, Scott. So how much does the actual game matter? They're going to get better idea of what happened in the game watching the all 22 later than they are from the press box. They're there to see the interpersonal stuff and the actual build and arm talent live. Because when you see enough guys, you can kind of separate the haves from the have-nots in that department. But it's really interesting to follow, no doubt. And it's the NFL is weird, and while there'll always be misses and busts, it's not like totally entropy or chaos, right? It's not like every single year there are day 3 quarterbacks emerging and becoming the best players in the league. A lot of the guys, and there's some selection bias to this, no doubt, but a lot of the best quarterbacks in the league and the guys that are getting second, third contracts have tended to be the earlier draft picks. So the NFL is doing something right of evaluating the haves and the have-nots there, all the same. But just because the demand of the position, there'll always be reaches and busts because you are always desperately looking for that guy if you don't have him.
Keith comes in. He says, Sean Payton sounds positive and where many players will be in year 2 of the system. What position group do you think we see make the biggest jump? And that's Sean Payton's job, is to put confidence in these guys as well. And frankly, you're not going to say, yeah, we missed on these guys. We don't expect much out of them in their second year. But that said, I mean, the two that you want to see make the biggest leap are Marvin Mims and Riley Moss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are big ones. I would love to see Benito or Browning take a big step forward as well, given their position. And it's
year 2 of
on
the system. Apologies, I'm thinking year two in the league. So apologies, because everybody's in year 2 of the system. So thank you, Nick.
Yeah, except the new guys, of course. But yeah, I'm hoping for. It's hard to say anybody on the offensive side of the ball because with the new quarterback, it's going to be different. I really don't love the talent in the pass catching rooms. You got questions here, but yeah, Mims really stands out here. Kroll / Dulcich, Kroll, the summer superstar for Broncos before we have real football. But yeah, those are guys that stand out. I'm really hoping though that one of those edge rushers maybe takes a step forward, and somebody on the offensive side of the pass catchers as well. We need somebody to emerge.
Yeah, from a personnel standpoint, you're hoping the wide receivers do. But a sneaky one on this, Nick. You did that and your eyes went like this. Whoosh.
So I got a hair. It's driving me nuts.
A sneaky answer to this, Keith, be the offensive line. I think, we disagree a little bit on our expectations of Ben Powers, but I don't think Ben Powers was played what he was paid. And I know Mike McGlinchey didn't. So getting those guys in their second year to play up to what you paid for would be a big difference for this team. So I think a sneaky answer to that is offensive line.
I agree to an extent. In theory, Nick / Stidham should help them because they're going to be a little bit more stable in their dropbacks and, not holding on to the ball, protecting the offensive line to an extent where Wilson had a little bit of broken play, pilled brain, which worked when he was younger and he had a lot more cover 3 going on and heavier boxes, and not as much now in today's NFL. But again, that's in theory with Nick. We are totally wait and see to see how that translates because he had massive advantages playing in the Pac-12 with Oregon's offensive line and how he got rid of the football with the options they had. I don't know if it's going to exactly translate. We're wait and see there. But the offensive line
about stats, and we really liked his, touchdown to interception ratio. Do you know what Zack Wilson's was in college?
I don't remember.
It was 11-1. He was 33-3 on touchdowns and interceptions. So again, it's a different game. Yep. It is. It's a different game. The intangibles are everything you want in a quarterback with Bo Nix. Those are all the good things. The measurables are not. They're not top of the line. They're not Josh Allen. That's okay. He doesn't have to be. So that's why he goes as the 6th quarterback instead of the 1st quarterback in this draft. So, but you'll like everything about him as a leader in this position. Now let's see how it translates.
Yeah. Waiting to see on that one for sure. And just the quarterback room in general, Scott talking about that year two. Jarrett Stidham, we had Sean Payton talk about him yesterday. Again, coming from New England, it took him a little bit of time. Smart guy, working very hard, according to Payton. But the language is a lot different, and implementing the play calls is just a different, style of offense. Come from that Earhart Perkins over to what Sean Payton is doing. It does seem like early on that Jarrett Stidham is the leader in the house, and that's not to be unexpected. He's the veteran, year two in the system. But if you ask me right now, I think it's probably close to a 50-50 split between who is the week one starter between Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham, with maybe Stidham, we'll see with training camp and everything, having a slight lead right now. Now, is that an issue with Bo Nix? I don't think so, so to speak, but we'll see how it plays out. And I see you posted in there on the chat.
Everybody's like, I'll tell everybody's like, let's wrap up here. So that
Yeah.
was, I put that in the main chat instead of the tier, but I was like, I feel like we're getting close here. Unless there's any big questions here, let's get close to wrapping up the morning show.
Yeah, and I see some questions about Bo Nix here, of course. So we got Brett Cap saying, I'm just ready to see what Nix does, hoping he's ready to jump right in and start, but don't want to rush him if he's not ready. Hopefully he's one. And we got Colin said there are only a handful of quarterbacks that are real difference makers that can come in with little time on the clock and score. There's probably 10 or so. I don't know what you mean by little time on the clock. You mean like quickly in the league and show up, or just in general in the actual gameplay? But there's 10 to 12 quarterbacks, I think, that are franchise caliber that you could put in that conversation. Of course, I don't know if you've been following the CJ Stroud interviews, but he's had some pretty fun takes. He's been on a Aaron Rodgers derogatory campaign, which I think has been fun. But talking about
I haven't paid attention to it.
If Stafford was with the Packers, they'd probably have more Super Bowls than what Rodgers had. Talking how he'd rather have the career of Eli Manning than Rodgers, given the rings. But hey, it's kind of funny. Stroud coming after Rodgers, but it's we're both big Stafford guys. That's one of the first things we're like, okay.
Once the guys on the pedestal start coming down, they become the vultures start circling.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is. And Aaron Rodgers is on the back. It's not even on the back end. How much longer is he going to go?
He's in the clubhouse.
He's certainly not at the peak of his powers. He's declined. Yeah. Once that starts happening, man, it's open season. Mm-hmm. Nobody loves more than taking shots at those guys.
I mean, we saw it here, right, with Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. Lawrence comes in and says, how is it always quarterback's fault? I'm starting to think it's Sean, because of how do quarterbacks with experience not know how to read his plays? I don't know what you mean by not knowing how to read his plays. It's more so executing the offense, and he has high demand on what the plays are. It's not the Kyle Shanahan offense where it's super duper simple for the quarterback, the West Coast style there. He puts a lot on their plate mentally, pre-snap checks based on the coverages, and maybe that is a little bit Sean Payton needing to coach to his players. But again, he's looking for his guy. He's empowered to do it. So he doesn't deserve all the fault. The quarterback doesn't deserve all the fault. But again, you empowered Payton to get his guys, and quarterback needs to come in and run his system.
Yeah, and part of it, I think, goes back to that wristband thing. It's taken too long to get this done. We'll go to the wristband if we have to. But, I think Sean Payton can simplify it enough. He's had a lot of success with a variety of quarterbacks. I think it might have been I think it was the freelancing of Russell Wilson that bothered him as much as anything. Because, one of the knocks on Jameis Winston, who set the league record for interceptions, was, decision making. Well, he goes in and he plays the best of his career. Small sample size, again, 5 or 6 games before he got hurt. Teddy Bridgewater, Sean Payton should get a commission check for getting all that money from Carolina Panthers. Is that the second time I'm going to make fun of the Carolina Panthers today and some of the stuff that they've done with bad ownership and decision-making? They give Teddy Bridgewater like $40 million. Sean Payton should have gotten a percentage of that after his injury. Teddy was a $7-8 million backup where the Broncos got him. That's where what he became. Taysom Hill, he creates packages for him to go out there and become an interesting weapon, and has started some games and done some things not bad for a Tim Tebow type guy. So I think it was just more of this is an established quarterback who's done things the way he wants to do it, and you're not going to change Russell Wilson and turn him into a sit in the pocket and not bail and look to make a play guy when he's in his 30s. It wasn't the right fit.
Not at all. Not at all. Michael Ronquillo coming in a few times. Great show today. Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. I don't know if there was an error there or something, but we really appreciate you coming in. And Jeff W says Russ made a one read and spinorama hero ball or dump off. Yeah, it was.
I agree with that. There's a lot of ill feelings with Broncos country and Russell Wilson, and it overlooks the fact that he did have a 26-9 touchdown to interceptions, which we've also talked would put Bo Nixon Rookie of the Year consideration, probably make him one of the favorites. So there's different expectations. One of the criticisms that I'll jump right on board with you is one read and spin and run. Abso-freaking-lutely every time. I mean, and that drives you crazy as a play caller. I was like, why am I calling these plays? Why are we even practicing if this is what we're going to do? Is if we're going to go to scramble drill every time we throw the ball. That was a bigger problem for me than not understanding or getting the play call. Is just this isn't what I need. I want to be a passing offense, pass to set up the run, including to my backs, and I can't do it. I can't do it when I don't know what I'm going to get from my quarterback. Well, I do, and it's not what I want. Yeah. I'm going to get one read and spin and run.
I mean, I don't want to call it that, but it was Tim Tebow-esque at some points last season. Much more competency, but just the volatility and then needing to like scrap the offense and kind of just go to hero ball. And sometimes you get highs, but you got a lot of lows as well. But yeah, Rocky, we did talk about it. Quarterback position battle. Right now, it seems to be 50-50. Knicks versus Stidham. Granted, that's just based on OTAs. I think Stidham right now has
not a quarterback. I'm not sure we did answer that. What's your favorite position? What's your favorite position battle other than QB?
Favorite? I mean, I guess I will have to go just because it's so impactful. The edge rushing spot there, Ellis has stood out early. We had a lot of talk about Baron Browning yesterday, and Cooper's been solid. And Nick Bonito last season took a huge step forward. So for me, I'm really looking forward to see how the edges stand out as we lead towards training camp. I know that I don't think you have a true perennial Pro Bowl type in there, but you need waves of guys, and a lot of those guys have talent still as well. So still looking for that number one, but I'm really curious to see how those four edge rushers stand out and maybe even play to an extent where one of them can be moved.
I still could wide receiver in here. I don't know that it's necessarily a battle because you're kind of expecting it to be Marvin Mims. That's where it'll start. Mm-hmm. But if he doesn't take it and run with it literally, then there's going to be a battle for that spot. He's an unproven commodity. And I think it's his job to lose right now, but there's absolutely room for change at the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 position right now.
Yeah, we'll see.
And safety too. And safety too, because I think Brandon Jones is a lock.
Yeah, cornerback
no pun intended there either with lock.
Cornerback 2, running back in general. We talked a lot about running back as well today. Tight end, we kind of mentioned Dulcich and Kroll, though. I mean, there's battles to be had. It's one of the fun things about the roster being in a state of flux.
Those battles aren't as interesting to me because I just don't think you have the high ceiling on those.
Yeah.
You know, it's if Javonte becomes the guy, then you've got a Pro Bowl caliber. I think he's the only Pro Bowl caliber running back you've got.
Possible.
Tight end. We'll see. Lucas Kroll is all of a sudden taking on mythical legendary status, you know, and that's what happens. Kings of Spring. Well, let's see how that goes. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we will. Those are definitely Missouri's show me type things. But I look at those two positions where there's good competition because you don't really have a great answer. That's, you know, right now, if Bonito and Browning and Cooper are going at it, I know the Browning's capable of 10 to 12 sacks a season. We know what Bonito have last year, 8?
I think so.
Winning that, getting playing time at that spot, if everybody's healthy, I'm coming up with a definite positive.
Yeah.
Tight end and running back to me right now are huge question marks no matter who wins the battle. And that's why I'm not as I'm interested in the play, unless it's Javonte. If Javonte wins it because he's back to himself, I think that's the best case scenario because I think he's got the highest ceiling. There's a lot of talk about Estime, but Estime's getting that unknown boost right now. Same with Lucas Kroll. Oh, he's the unknown, so therefore he's better. Well, maybe not. The old saying, the backup quarterback's the most popular guy in the NFL. It's the unknown. He's got to be better than this guy. Yep. It's the hope you could have a secret box, the Family Guy thing you talk about could even be a boat.
The mystery box.
Yeah, the mystery box.
That's always a great one. And a final question here from Jay Roper, one of the best players in football right now, Max Crosby, probably one of the top 3 or 4 edge rushers in football, and therefore probably one of the top 3 or 4 defensive players in football. How did Max Crosby fall in the draft? He had a lot of drug stuff coming out when he was in college. He played for a small school as well. So, the questions about the translation, although when you are a freak athlete, things can translate. We saw it kind of with Khalil Mack at Buffalo as well, right? So if you're a freak athlete, things play at the edge rusher spot. But Crosby had some issues, violated a lot of team rules, and fell because of that. But there was some drug stuff. There's a lot of good. He's had some interviews about his issues in the past as well that he's overcome. But there's always risk involved with stuff like that, of course.
Yep, good for him. It's a lifelong battle, and he's been winning it since he's cleaned up, which is great.
Yep. Yeah, battle with alcohol, drugs, a bunch of it. You can check it out. He did an interview with ESPN, and he's one of the best players in football now, unfortunately, on a team that we hate. So, Scott, time to wrap it up. Appreciate you joining us on Wednesday. We want to shout out to Lawrence Rivera, Michael Ronquillo, Richard Bezencotter. Richard, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce the German last name there, but appreciate you, Richie. Lawrence Rivera again, Rob Bucksbaum, Troy Boer, Keith Brugman. You guys killed it today. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle, as well as at Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as that ticker says underneath, please subscribe to Mile High Huddle over on YouTube. Like the channel and share on your social media platforms so we can get more Broncos country in there. You guys are the diehards of the diehards in here joining us on a Wednesday morning in June. So appreciate you. Scott, any final thoughts, words, opinions? What's going on?
Nope. I won't see y'all guys for another week. I'll be back on Wednesday. Nick will probably be here on Monday, though, holding down the Broncos for breakfast. I'm going to Hoover, Alabama for some baseball this weekend. Looking forward to it. Appreciate y'all joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you again.
All right, guys. Well, have a great one. Enjoy the rest of your week. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.